Hi guys! Today we're with Anastasiya. That's the correct way to pronounce her name, just so you know. And we're going to talk about the heated debate about the Ukrainian and Russian conflict today. So for the first part, we will share with you like some of the stereotypes that we have about Ukrainian or Ukraine, and you could tell us like what you think about these stereotypes. Are they true? Are they not true? Are they like that? Or actually more than that? Yeah. So the first question or statement: all Ukrainian loves borscht and all knows how to cook borscht. True or false?
False. Definitely false. Like, I'd say all the Minervans in here, we do celebrate borscht, we do love it. I'm not sure whether everyone can cook it. No, not everyone can cook it. I can do that, but most of my friends back in Ukraine, they don't. And my sister, my cousins, they don't like borscht, so it's not the must-have for a Ukrainian to love it.
But what about like one thing that you must eat when you're in Ukraine?
Borscht.
You want to explain that? Or you can explain it? You want to explain what it is?
It's like borscht is like a beetroot soup with meat, with salo, which is basically pork fat, and some cabbage, some potatoes. It's all spiced up with pepper and maybe some parsley. And it's very nourishing. It's very fulfilling, but not everyone likes it. Yeah.
So our third stereotype is that the Russian language and the Ukrainian language are the same.
No.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Who told you that? Show me the person who told you that.
Online.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not you.
No. Well, we come from the same root. All Slavic languages are in a way similar to each other, and you can find similar, sounds, similar words, even the same words. But then, like, some French words came to English too, but we do not call French and English the same. We do not call Spanish and Portuguese the same, and that's like why we cannot call Ukrainian and Russian the same, because they are different languages. We do have different alphabet, we do have different characters, we do have different pronunciation, completely different. Like in Russian you have only one rolling R, in Ukrainian you have 3 different rolling R's that you say. So they are different. That's a stereotype, definitely.
And I think for me another stereotype is that all Ukrainians speak Russian. Is that true?
Not all Ukrainians. For instance, Victoria or Nazar, they understand it, but they cannot speak it. Like as far as I understand, But most of the Ukrainians on the west, they know rather Polish than Russian, so they do not speak Russian. Ukrainians on the east, like they might start speaking Russian because their parents grew up that way. They grew up in the Soviet Union still, and their primary language for studying was Russian. And that's why it might be the case. It was like that with me. I started speaking Russian, and then when I got to school, I was in Ukrainian school, so I've been learning everything in Ukrainian, so I'm basically bilingual. But some people grow up learning Russian, some people grow up learning Polish, Ukrainian, so no, not everyone.
And speaking of like regional difference, is it true that people on the west side of Ukraine are more pro-EU, and on the east side they're more pro-Russia?
It's like a general tendency from what I see and what I understand. I cannot tell for sure. It's my own interpretation. But I cannot say that people on the east are not pro-Europe, and I cannot say that none of the people on the west are pro-Russian. But the general tendency is that, you mostly shift to the place where you're closer to, the culture you know better, and all the cities on the west, I think the west from the capital, they are considered more pro-European rather than cities on the east, mostly because of our history and the division between the Russia and the Europe that has been there for like almost 500 years.
I have one last question.
Sure.
Are you from Kiev, or are you from like the west side or the east side?
I'm from the east. I'm like from the eastern city. It's called the cultural capital of Ukraine because we have all these great poets and art people who grew up in my city, Poltava, and who are well known all around the world, and that's what we are proud of. And then our special dialect, Ukrainian dialect, is it's amazing. People know us for that. I lived in Kiev for 1 year because I was studying in the university there, and I dropped out for Minerva. Happy I did that. No offense.
Awesome. So, talking about like the conflict between Russia and EU, let us begin like the main topic today about Crimea, which brings us to cookies and conflicts. Okay, so can you talk more? Like, can you start us off with a little bit context about what is going on between Russia and Ukraine in terms of like this Crimea crisis?
Okay, so at this moment, Crimea is totally occupied. It doesn't have any kind of contact with Ukraine because we have blocked all kind of citizen migration. We have blocked the water transition, electricity transitioning. So Crimea for Ukrainians right now is blocked, so you can't really enter it. How it started, I guess, or what kind of context do you want to?
Yeah, how did it start, or like,
So-
why did it start?
Why did it? Wow, that's those are great questions, you guys. If you get the answer, please let me know. But like, I'm going to be speaking from my interpretation of the events. So we had this revolution of dignity happening in 2013, 2014 in Ukraine. And this has happened after our president at that time, Yanukovych, he basically declined to sign an agreement with EU for Ukraine to join EU. And all the Ukrainians were waiting for that, and we were very disappointed with it. And after that, the shortages in money incomes came to the students, so they didn't get all the stipend that they were supposed to get from the universities and the government. So we went out to the main square in the capital, in Kiev, and basically started a rally against the president. It went on for quite a while, and basically the government didn't like it. No one likes when there is a rally and reporters are coming and they're telling about all of this. And he basically got afraid of it, and what he did, he brought down the troops. And they started moving away the students, and then they started like beating them, and the first shootings came out, and they started putting gas, and like people saw that on the TV. They were super frustrated with it, and more people came to the main square. They started putting the like camps, started like putting the barricades against the policemen. More policemen came to stop this, and basically the revolution of dignity came where more than 100 people were killed on the main square, and basically that was like in a way a civil war happening right in the center. I wasn't there. I wasn't in Kyiv at that moment, but I was in my home city, and for the eastern Ukraine, it brought like this wave of anti-communism, anti-Russia feeling. And basically why the anti-Russia and anti-communism movement started is because Yanukovych was very much like in touch with the Russian president at that time, and we all felt inside that basically Putin pulled the strings and told Yanukovych not to join the EU because that wouldn't be profitable for Russia. Once again, my own interpretation, I'm not sure how that happened, but that's what we felt. And that's why we decided to get rid of that and get rid of our like corrupt governments. So those like little revolutions that has happened in Kiev, they spread out all around the country, and in every like city hall, those sparks has happened. In my own city, I was getting back from the one of my trainings, and I was passing by the city council, and there was like fire and people fighting, and me and my dad are driving by, and I'm like, hi, and I was like 13 years old, and I was like, so what is happening? Yeah, that was very scary, but it moved on. The aggression stopped, and the president fled, so we didn't know where to go, so we started our own elections. But right at that moment where everything seemed to be settling down, and like, oh wow, now we have a chance to move over and start our own country. We got the news that in the Crimea, Russian troops completely occupied all of the military bases. They got into the country, they're controlling all of the cities, they're switching out, they're telling the people that there's going to be a referendum, whether they want to join Russia. And basically the next morning, we all get the news that Russia is occupied Crimea, and they're not letting anyone in. They are telling all the Ukrainian troops that they need to reassign to Russian army, and that's the Russian, that's the Russian place, basically. And we were like, why? And basically the first response is that, well, you guys, Crimea was Russian for all the time. We just gave it for you, like a rent. And we were like, that was just funny to hear. Like judging that, Crimea was with Ukraine for like almost almost 100 years, like there, and they were given. Crimea was granted to Ukraine in 1954, and that was like the celebration of 300 years of Ukrainian and Russian union like together, and that was like a gift granted from Nikita Khrushchev, who was the governor of the USSR at that moment. So like you couldn't really tell that it wasn't ours. There were documents, there were treaties signed up, and we were just amazed how Russians could just come in, take it, and claim it their own. It was disrespectful, it was nice, and then a year later, the UN voted that was an outright aggression, and Russia doesn't have any rights to possess it as basically theirs. Yeah.
And so how is it like right now after UN declared that it's not
Yeah.
legitimate?
Basically, Russians did a referendum between Ukrainian citizens in Crimea, and just for the fact, Crimea was the autonomous republic of Ukraine, so it wasn't like Ukrainian. It was Ukrainian territory, but they had their own government, so they had their own thing happening. So they had a referendum, and it's sad that most of the citizens voted in favor to join in Russia, which like maybe was right, but most of the people think it was like speculation and basically like intervention inside of the voting. And right now, at the moment, they have Russian currency going on. They are all Russian citizens. Ukraine has no access there. It brings nothing down to Crimea. It prohibits migration in there and prohibits like basic human transport in between two territories. So it's totally isolated by Russians. We don't even have any media coming in there or coming out. So they're living their Russian life that they wanted. Yep.
So do you have any personal experiences with this topic, or does like one of your family members have something to do with it, or like have some?
Yeah,
Yeah.
my dad was served in the military down in Crimea. He was served in Simferopol, which is one of the major cities in Crimea. And personally, me and my family, we were all very afraid that he's going to be called up there, like as the Russian, soldier, and will be like called to come back and join the forces. Luckily, it didn't happen, or I haven't heard about it. My family hides everything from me, so I'm not really sure what the story was there. But I would assume he got some kind of a note from Russian forces to come join in Crimea, but he definitely didn't. He stays in my home country right now.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So when you interact with Russian, what do you think? Like
They're the same people as like I am, or it's not their fault. And like even if they think that all this conflict between Ukraine and Russia is a speculation, it's just basically a civil war in Ukraine, as it is not. I don't think it's their fault that has happened. I do not see them as my, enemies. I don't know what's happening in their heads. And basically, both medias in Ukraine and in Russia, they have their own biases. They're talking to things that are very advantageous for them. So I cannot say that I hate Russians or anything. 2 days ago, I met this wonderful Russian lady at this game campaign. Great, we talked. We had wonderful chemistry happening. So yeah. I don't mind Russians. They're fine. It's just their government is a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the martial law. How is it affecting like people in Ukraine right now?
Yeah. So it hasn't been imposed on the whole territory of Ukraine. It was imposed only on several regions, and mostly the east. But the problem with the martial law is that once it's imposed, you have the time where you can't be on the streets anymore. You need to adhere to the military that is in the country. And the worst part is that the mobilization of the troops is happening. So I have friends from my Ukrainian university who were telling me who are from those regions, and who told me that their fathers and their friends were taken to the east of the country to fight for Ukraine, which is super frustrating. Like, I was lucky enough for my region to be cropped out of this martial law situation. So none of my closest friends and none of my family members were taken anywhere. But it's super frustrating to think what could have happened if it was in my region too. And looking at all those young people that are being transferred and understanding that this is real, this is there, is super frustrating.
Do you think there is any way or a solution that the conflict can be resolved in the future or in the long term?
Yeah, please take away Putin from that place. And I tell you, so many conflicts in the world would have been so much easier. No, but honestly, it freaks me out so much how people just cannot negotiate. We all understand, I understand, I'm not gonna do the bandwagon. I understand that basically what Russia needs, they need our natural resources, they need our territories, they need our culture, they need our hotspots for tourism to attract more people in it, to get more money, to get more profit. Ukrainian lands are the best lands for agriculture, which is super useful for Russia too. And in addition, it's a right way for Russia to pass all of the gas and all the natural resources they have to the Europe, and it's basically a market for them. And if they lose us to Europe, it's just not going to be right for them. They're going to lose a lot of money on it. And I think the negotiation needs to happen there, and people need to understand that this conflict is basically because they're trying to exhaust all of our resources and trying to make us move and join them, which is super frustrating. And the rest of the world needs to understand it. Like, the conflict is not going to happen. It's not going to end if you send your troops or send your tanks or send your weapons to us. It's just going to be ongoing for longer and longer and longer, how it's happening in Georgia and around the world too, where Russia is involved.
So okay, this is a lot of questions. We're over time, but I'm really curious about how can you guys speak against the government in Ukraine? Like, let's say online, can you comment, or is it legal? Do you get arrested for that?
No, like, our government is in some way pathetic. Like, you watch them, like, comedians joke at them. Like, we have this stupid ass cartoon where, like, it would show like our main politicians and it would like joke at them. We had like this TV series from the guy who's actually running for president this year, like about all of the corruption happening in.
Президент просить вибачення, він зараз проводить в Раді фінальні консультації.
And like, people joke about it, people talk about it, but it's like the last thing that we're left to. We can just laugh at it and like keep on working for our own sake. I think that's the problem with Ukraine right now. We don't feel united. But what unites us is that our, disgust towards our government. Like, you can watch those funny videos online about politicians fighting in the parliament. Oh my god, I love those videos. Like, honestly, you watch those guys in suits talking from the tribune, and then suddenly they start fighting, and you're like,
Can't relate.
Yeah,
it's also us. Yeah.
Oh my god, so fun.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm happy. So yeah, you can definitely talk against them, but I don't think it's going to change anything unless the attitude of the people changes, and unless we start believing and start, actually believing that we can change Ukraine and that government is not that bad. They just don't know what to do. Yeah, we just need the right people to say us what to do, and to do that, not just sit there and like, our politicians are funny, let's go with them. Yeah.
So if other people want to know more about Ukraine, what media or channel would you recommend them?
John Oliver posted some very nice pictures, some very nice videos about Ukraine-Russian conflict. You can definitely watch those. They're funny and they're more or less informative. I would say Kyiv Post. It's like Washington Post, but like instead of Washington, you put Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. Yep. That's a very nice resource. They have both Ukrainian and English versions. And as I read, I can definitely relate. They like pretty much shadow what I think, and they show me mostly in the right way. I don't know any other English resources, to be honest. But I would say like double check everything. Like, no matter what it is, no matter what information it is, you always double check and you look for true data.
Hashtag source
Yes.
equality.
Yep.
Okay, so the last thing would be like the one thing that you want people to remember.
Take away from this conversation.
Take away from this conversation. Don't blame your politicians, blame your nation, blame yourself for not doing everything possible to make a change.
Wow, really deep thought.
Yep.
Well, thank you so
Thank you so
much.
Thank you.
If you have similar conflicts in your region or your country, or international conflicts that your country is involved in, please sign up the form, and we will check up on you later. So,
Thank you so much.
so much.
We'll see you next time. Bye.